one of the main components of project management is culture. Now, culture is essential to be, and it's an essential aspect of project management that needs to be analyzed and understood in order to plan, implement, execute, and evaluate projects. There are endless definitions of culture, and most of them are dependent on the context. Hofstede defines culture as a collective mental programming of the mind which distinguishes members of one human group for another. Under this definition, we can include main characteristics such as values, history, language, religion, customs, traditions, behaviors, and social assumptions. All of these interact, and people and groups, they interact and they create culture by their interaction. And if you want to implement a project in different markets or across different cultures, you must have a very clear knowledge about what the cultural aspects of this particular group that you're going to be dealing with are. On a more corporate perspective, you can identify culture as what people do every day without being told to do it. Now that we have looked at all of these components, we start to have a clear mental image of what projects are made of. Now, before we move forward to identifying different types of projects, we will take time to identify the main constraints that projects have. Now, the traditional triple constraint model, as we can see here, involves constraints in terms of time, cost, and scope, all of which will have a direct impact on the quality of the project. This triangular model is sometimes referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of project management, because just as ships and planes can mysteriously disappear when they pass through the Bermuda Triangle, or they allegedly do so, the projects can also fail and be utterly unsuccessful if they do not handle their time, their scope, and their cost adequately. So what kind of projects are there? Well, most projects can be classified into these main three categories. We've got compliance projects, we've got strategic projects, and operational projects. Compliance projects are must-do projects. They normally are associated to cases of emergencies, and also they can incur in penalties or fines if they are not actually carried out. So some examples of these compliance projects could be reconstruction due to an accident in a company or in a production plant. They must rebuild it and refurbish it because they must. It's a compliance project. We also can see changes in legislation as being main triggers for compliance project. When a new law comes out, some companies must adapt their operations in order to comply with the legal requirements. Strategic projects, on the other hand, are projects that support the long-term mission of the company, like increasing market share or revenue, and they can be explained by new development of products, research and development of markets, and all of these are projects that support the strategy of the company. Operational projects are associated with a company's operations, such as reducing costs or optimizing efficiency, improving performance. Total quality management projects are examples of operational projects. So we understand that there's different types of projects, but what are the main project triggers? What drives project management? Well, we can define them into these main four categories. We've got change-driven projects, which are projects that are meant to match the environment, to match changes in the environment. We also have market-driven projects, such as new products or new needs, or in order to cope with the market competition. We also have crisis-driven projects, which are projects that respond to urgent situations, like natural disasters. And innovation-driven projects, which are projects that are aimed to promote progress, development, and innovation. So we have seen the main components of project management. We have seen the different types of projects that there are. We have seen different types of project triggers and the drivers of projects. So now it's important to understand how project management and strategic management combine. Now, the strategic management process has certain deliverables. If you think about it for a second, what is a strategy meant to deliver? Well, a strategy is meant to deliver goals, and these goals are converted into projects. This diagram helps us understand this concept. At the top, we have the customer, whose needs the project is supposed to satisfy. Before we can move on to satisfying their needs, we must conduct an environmental analysis of both the internal aspects and the external aspects of the project. For that, we use the tools that we previously mentioned. After we conduct this analysis, we do a re-evaluation of the firm's mission, the goals and strategies. And as I've just mentioned, goals at this stage are prioritized and converted into projects. Projects can be divided into two main branches. These two main branches, they combine to deliver a specific project. We've got the systemic side of project management, which is the side that can be considered as the science of project management, or the hard knowledge behind project management. Now, this relates to the scope of the project, work breakdown structures, network diagrams, resources, budgets, cost identification, and so on. On the other side, we've got the environmental and socio-cultural aspects of project management. Now, this branch of project management deals with the artistic side of projects, the soft side and the soft knowledge of projects, such as the organizational structures that are in place to support project management implementation, the leadership capabilities of the different members of the group, the team construction abilities and the team construction models that facilitate the integration of the different members of the group and coordinates their efforts towards specific SMART objectives. And also partners and networks and connections and networking, all of these are the soft side of project management. Together, these two sides complement each other in order to implement projects. But the strategic considerations of project management don't end there. Now, if we now understand and agree on the fact that the strategy is implemented through projects, then it is inevitable to have a very clear link between the organization's strategy and the projects that the company is undertaking. These must be aligned with the company's mission in order to avoid strategic clashes. Look at this diagram to help you understand what this concept is actually saying. If we see the blue large arrow, now we can see this as the strategy of the company. Notice how the red bars underneath represent projects which are under constant review. As we defined earlier, programs are a combination of interrelated projects. And notice how the strategy is aligned with the programs, which is aligned at the same time with the projects that are being reviewed. So you can see that there is a coordination and synchronization between the organization's overall strategy and the project that they're implementing. In order to achieve and to reach this type of harmonious synchronization, you must have an integrated project management office that exerts a degree of influence on the projects in order for them to provide benefits to the strategy, and simultaneously the strategy would provide purpose for these projects to be undertaken. So what kind of projects are we supposed to select? Well, if we have a list of projects, we must prioritize them. So what kind of tools can we use to prioritize this project so that they bring more benefit to the company and that they better support the organization's strategy? Well, we have some financial tools, non-financial tools, and multi-criteria selection models. On financial tools, we can see net present value as a commonly used alternative, or the payback model. Which kind of project is going to be more valuable in the future, depending on the amount of money that I'm investing right now? How long will it take for the project to pay back the investment that we're making? These are some financial tools that can be used to prioritize projects according to financial components. But not all of the projects are decided upon a financial basis. There are also non-financial criterion, like for instance to capture a larger market share or to make it difficult for competitors to enter the market, to develop new products or core technologies for next generation products, or to reduce the dependency on unreliable suppliers. All of these are examples of non-financial criterion for the project selection process. The multi-criteria selection models include checklist models or multi-weighted scoring models, where you assign a specific characteristics of a project and then you grade them according to certain requirements of what your project needs to fulfill. Now let's start to look at the project lifecycle. Now the project lifecycle is important to be understood because it provides the unique undertakings that involve uncertainty by dividing the project into several phases in order to provide better management, control, linkage to ongoing operations, synchronization with the strategy, and structured completion methodologies. If we take a project and we break it down into all of these phases, collectively, these phases are known as the project management lifecycle. We can see how the project management lifecycle looks like when it's depicted in this chart. Now, notice how on the y-axis we've got the level of effort, and how on the x-axis we've got time. We've got the defining phase, planning phase, executing phase, and delivering phase. Now, each of these curves represents the amount of effort, and in terms of cost, in terms of human labor, in terms of technological requirements that the project will undertake and the project will consume as it progresses through these consecutive stages. Now, the defining stage is where we come up with different sets of goals and specifications when we assign specific tasks and responsibilities. Now, at the defining stage, the amount of effort involved is minimal compared to the executing or the planning phases. In the planning phase, we start to assign specific schedules, budgets, resourcing, risks, and staff to deliver the expected results of the project. The executing phase, here we conduct status reports, changes, analyze the quality, and do specific forecasts. The executing stage, as you can see here in the graph, is the stage that will consume the most effort in terms of capital, and cost and human effort in the project. The delivering phase, which is the last phase, is when you transfer these documents in order to release the resources and you hand over the project. Here we also do a post-project evaluation in order to analyze how we did, what we did wrong, how to correct that, and how to improve in future projects. This chart summarizes the information further. Here we can see how both of these phases can be divided between planning phases and accomplishment or implementation phases. Starting with the project startup by gathering and identifying the data that we need, conducting a stakeholder analysis, and understanding the company strategy and how the project is going to be synchronized with it. We define the project in terms of scope and objectives and prepare the statement of work or the initial project charter, which is the document that provides all of the initial components in terms of information that is needed to initiate the project. We identify work breakdown structures, we identify high-level deliverables, we identify risks, resources, and come up with an initial budget in order to know how much money we've got. The project development phase appoints specific key members to specific tasks and activities. Here, the work breakdown structure and the schedule is detailed and is completed. We also allocate team members to specific work packages and conduct risk assessment plans, as well as policies and procedures on how to carry out the project. We've got detailed deliverables in terms of quality management and strategy, and when this phase is completed, we move on to the implementation or accomplishment phases. Project implementation and control. We've got the project kickoff, where we monitor and control the project through status reports and steering committee meetings. Here we conduct procurement management, issue management to resolve problems that might arise, change management, and communication management. Here we also take into account contractor management and project administration to ensure that there is a concrete quality delivered throughout the project. Motivation is also a key point in this phase. Finally, we move to the last phase of the project lifecycle, which is the project termination and close down. Here, we finalize the project deliverables, review and accept what the outcomes of the project were, and we transfer responsibility to the other group of stakeholders who's going to take over the project once it's completed. The project is evaluated in terms of effectiveness and efficiency, its ability to satisfy the specified needs from the beginning, and how well did it did in terms of time, scope, and budget. We document these results and we release and redirect the available resources as well as the project management team. Now, the project life cycle will then provide you with a very clear definition of what phases need to be completed chronologically to deliver a project. And they provide a conclusion of the project itself. It specifies the beginning, the end of the project. It tells you what kind of technical work needs to be done in each phase, who should be responsible for doing it. It helps you to detect errors, and it provides you with a more holistic understanding of what projects actually are. Let's take another short break and continue in a couple of minutes.